Just testing, Jazz. Are we already live on YouTube?
Oh, looking very sharp, Mark. It's like the reveal. We've been waiting. We haven't had your picture to be continued. Look at that.
You're waiting for my reveal, Stephen. You have a very sad life.
Still trying to figure out like having Zoom on this iPad and reading the agenda. We've got my second device.
I have two screens. It makes up a lot.
And just so you know, I think we're already live on YouTube.
Oh, good evening, everybody.
So just
we're live sensations, all right?
I understand there was a problem with the pizza. Is that correct?
It's all right. Simon did a wonderful job.
Okay, good to hear.
Director of Infrastructure and Pizza Delivery at the City of Prospect is what we've heard.
It does appear that we are on YouTube.
Yeah, it does appear that we are live on YouTube. That's what I mentioned. Yeah.
All right.
So did everybody get something to eat in the end?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Sorry about that. I don't want, obviously, they didn't hear their instructions very well.
Prospect delivers.
Well, Prospect delivers in the end, I think is the phrase.
I think Ginny said she was trying to hang on to the delivery person at Payinthi, but no, he went.
I think the problem really was the delivery person's other schedule. But anyway.
Missed out on Linus, Nigel.
Oh, yeah. It's gone really well.
Going gangbusters, mate. I'm watching him every day. $2.10 today, I think.
Yeah. It was a no-brainer because, you know, the more Trump fights with China, the more rare earth is going to be really
Yeah, you've done a good job there. It's your new
Well,
nickname, I think.
Well, you know, it doesn't always work that way because Northern Territory's gone backwards, or, you know, wherever it is, Northern Minerals
Yeah.
for the moment. But I'm ahead overall, Robert.
That's it.
Hello there.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Hello.
Lord Mayor.
Everybody's fed and watered and everything else.
Yes.
Excellent.
Can everybody see everybody else? I'm just checking in terms of real estate. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Just take that out.
Oh, Mayor. Course number 2 is salt and vinegar chips and a free chocolate biscuit. Just thought I'd let you know.
That is truly extraordinary, Councillor. Words fail me.
I'm glad we're not sharing.
Okay. Wait. Okay, I'll open the meeting. Welcome elected members and staff and those who are watching on Facebook Live and any of the other formats that we're currently tuned into. You're very welcome. The meeting is being video recorded and available for people afterwards. In welcoming you, I'd like to acknowledge that the City of Prospect acknowledges that we're on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. Now read you the Council Pledge too. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. You may all be seated. I already are. On leave, we have nil, but we do have an apology, unfortunately, from Councillor Harris, who's just rung through and unable to make it. So our thoughts are with him. Declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any declarations for any of the agenda items tonight? No? Okay. Confirmation of the minutes. Would somebody like to move that the minutes for Council for Tuesday the 28th be taken as read and confirmed as a true record? Councillor Ripp, did you wish to speak to it? No. Councillor Barnett has seconded. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, thanks.
Any further debate? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Public question time, item 6. There are no questions have been received. So at this stage, there are none to ask. It's too difficult to take them online on YouTube, I think we're on. Hopefully next month, we're back in the chamber. So we can meet face to face if we choose to. I'm not sure about whether the public will be able to attend. So the CEO and I are working on that, and we'll keep you and always kept open to you writing to us with your question, and we'll certainly read it out and answer it if we can. Petitions, we have nil. Deputations, nil. Questions without notice. Do we have any members? No, that being the case, move on to reports for decision. Item 10.1 is review and update of existing policy.
Page, well, it's reading 6 on mine, but it's probably a different number. Yep. The policy is one of the policies, which is the internal review of council decision policies. It's anticipated to work alongside an unreasonable complaint policy, which sounds like an interesting policy. Do we know when that's coming to us?
CEO.
If I can just refer that to either Jenny or Joe, through you, Chair.
Let's go to Director.
Through the chair, approximately in July, we have it scheduled in July to come back to council.
Thank you. And I look forward to the colourful treatment within for those sort of complaints. I don't know what that means, but we'll see it, no doubt, Councillor. Anything further, Councillor, in speaking to the motion?
No, just it's good that we're reviewing the policies as scheduled, and yeah, I look forward to that next policy coming to us.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Pearce. Sorry, you're on mute, councillor. You are a robin that's not tweeting. Here we go.
I'm now tweeting. Just a question, 3.16, the responsible officer. Who is our responsible officer?
CEO or director?
Through the chair is currently the principal governance advisor, Joe Tanti.
Thank you.
Anything for Councillor Pearce? No, any further debate from anybody? No, that being the case, Councillor Barnett, do you see any need to sum up?
No.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item 10.2 is the new external grants policy, something that we've asked for. Good to see. Recommendations on page 47. Somebody happy to move it in its current form? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
I have a question, if that's okay. First of all.
Yes, you've got a slight problem with your audio, a little bit of a background buzz going on, just so
Yes.
you're aware. That's better. Right, fire away.
Okay. In fact, everybody's frozen on my screen except for Twee. Anyway, question is 2.2 whole of life costs. So is this suggesting that before we commit to an external grant, we would carry out both a risk assessment and also a whole of life cost assessment to determine ongoing costs, which may be where the real kicker is, as opposed to the upfront cost of funding the grant. So is there a formal structure around that whole of life cost analysis is done, or is that simply on a case-by-case scenario, the appropriate measurements are used?
So you're reading from the definitions section. So
Correct,
the application of it is in clause 4.1.5, where it says whole of life cost impacts if relevant. So that gives a partial answer to your question, but I will ask the director or the CEO for further answers to your question.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Director, do you want to add anything at this point before I speak?
Sorry, through the chair, that's right. That is where, when we put a report to council, it is anticipated that we put a projection of what it will be cost, what will be the recurrent cost ongoing as best as we can estimate for that particular project. There is no current template as such. It is individual case by case based on each individual application.
Thank you. CEO?
Through you, Chair, some things are very straightforward. So depreciation is a very clear calculation. Some of the others are less straightforward, but they really do need to be on a case-by-case basis. But one thing I raised before this meeting is that we need to get better at defining these and letting council know. We think it's a very serious proposition that we need to come back with, as much as we can, a full whole of life end-to-end cost. And I think we're developing better techniques at doing that. And so we think it's important it's in this policy. We think it's important that we get better at being as accurate as we can when we're taking proposals to council.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, any further questions?
No, that's I'm glad to hear both from the director and also the CEO on that note. So that's all I have from a questions point of view.
Did you wish to debate the item in moving it?
No, that's fine. Look, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. It would be, as long as we're all comfortable that the fairly broad definition of whole of life cost impacts of the funding opportunity, if relevant, is all we really need. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it does have an impact on our planning across multiple years. Yeah, hopefully I'm assuming that as I'd expect with our team, the assessment will be carried out through a process. So I don't have too many concerns. I was just interested to hear a little bit more detail about that. But yeah, I'm happy to put forward the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I think it's worth mentioning on page 46 that there are checks and balances in the policy that we would expect as a council. That is around the approval process. And so that what can happen is that in the interim, as I understand from here, that if it's not accounted for within the council budget, well then the CEO can give interim approval, and then it has to come back as a report to council, and then council can decide whether it wants to accept or reject. So I think that's for me one of the important points. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, just sort of reiterating, I guess, Councillor Larwood's point. I think it's really good that we factor in the ongoing costs, because quite often we'll look at the upfront costs of things. So I guess things like the tree tunnels and the extension to Churchill Road and some of our parks and gardens. So what's the upfront cost, and but also the ongoing cost? And of course, you know, we've got I've been assured by the CEO with some of the projects we've taken on to staff, I think last year, for some of those that maintenance work and ongoing work. But I guess if we're doing due diligence, it's really good to see a bit of a ballpark of what this sort of yearly rate is. I guess you could look at, okay, we've got more plants and trees, they need watered, and, you know, if there's any rubbish collected, but we might be reducing at the same time the amount of graffiti and dumped rubbish because of the increase in amenity. So it's not a sort of apples and oranges comparison, but certainly there are things that do require maintenance. It's good on maybe just a line in some of the things that come back to us to know what those ongoing costs could be. So yeah, I commend the motion.
Thank you. Any further debate? Deputy Mayor, seeing you need to sum up?
No, thanks.
Okay, that concludes debate. All those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Speaking of grants, next item 10.3, successful grant funding for Churchill Road Master Plan Stage 3 of 3 and Prospect Estate Nganu Wirra redevelopment. Just a slight correction in the report and in recommendation part 3. It's called Prospect Gardens, not Prospect Estate, just to make sure that we've got that correct. And staff apologise for that error in the title and in the recommendation and all the way through the report. I have to say it's because it's not in Prospect. It's always very confusing. But we'll deal with that at another time, I hope. Somebody happy to move these 3 recommendations in their current form? Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it?
Well, look, I just wanted to start off by thanking the staff for putting the time into these applications and for pursuing them. It's really exciting outcome for the city to see us receive two grants from the state government. Obviously, that time that went into it. So credit to the staff for investing that time. So congratulations to everyone involved with that. It's also obviously exciting to see our city get 2 grants from the state government. I think the state government acknowledge their involvement as well. Just got a question for the administration. If you don't have the answer tonight, that's fine. But just what we're going to do in terms of bringing extra work forward. Obviously, the state government with these grants will want to see the work sort of start now or start soon and progress. But if we've got $968,500 worth of work, I mean, I know it's 50-50, but work that's their part funding, have we got plans to bring extra work forward and just how that's going to work?
Thank you. CEO.
Thank you, councillor. Certainly the combination of what ultimately with the latest federal grant will be 1.25 million in additional funding is very significant. And that's on top of our normal capital works project. The Mayor's made it very, very clear, and I'm sure Council has as well, we will move these as quickly as we can when the funding's in place. It is going to be a very big year in prospect and infrastructure next year, and we're delighted with our success. And we recognise that it's incumbent upon us, as required by both the state and federal government stimulus packages, to move as promptly as possible to get these projects underway. So certainly we understand that imperative.
Thank you. Councillor Ripp, anything further?
Yeah, well, again, well done. Really excited. I'm really looking forward to the next 12 months, and obviously with the federal grant money to see us really push works forward and sort of get on with it. And I think we can really deliver quite a bit. So thank you.
Do I have a second? Councillor Pearce, do you wish to speak to it?
Just to reiterate what Councillor Ripp said, I think the infrastructure department need to be congratulated on the work they've done to get these two grants over the line. Great opportunity for the council to get the Churchill Road stage 3 finished with the help of, something's good come out of COVID, I guess, when this sort of thing happens. So I'm very happy. And again, well done to the infrastructure department.
Any further debate? Councillor De Backer, then Deputy Mayor.
Look, again, congratulations on securing the funding. I think it's a really good start and completion of a project, and I guess a grand vision that some councillors and elected members with us and before us had. I guess one of the things, again, we're spending money, there's the cost and the value. So there's 1.5 million being spent. I'd really like to see 2 million in value. And a lot of that has to do with some of the partnerships and relationships that we can build as part of this. Now, as part of the current consultation, I believe all that went out was a letter and a plan of the proposed works. As everyone knows, I'm quite a visual person, and I think it would be really good to get some buy-in from some of those important landowners that are next to where the development's happening, the capital works are happening. And a bit like we talked in Collinswood sort of precinct, looking at seeding the area. So, okay, we're doing the verge. What are you thinking about doing? We're thinking about doing this. Are you thinking about doing any artwork? These are people you can talk to. So I'd really like to see an extra $500,000 worth of value in some of those relationships that we build with people. And I think that's a really communication strategy. So yeah, I look forward to sort of seeing some more of that when it comes back to the workshop.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Or Deputy Lord Mayor, as he's known now.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
No, not me.
Okay, so my question was, again, supporting the team who've put this together, and it's a great outcome. How do we have any, I know we don't really have a target around grant funding. How do we sit? Does anyone know how we sit with regards to some sort of metric across the metropolitan councils for receiving our fair share of grant funding? I'm not sure whether there's some sort of ratio that says for revenue, every dollar of revenue or every $1 million of revenue would be expecting to go after and successfully achieve X thousands of dollars worth of grant funding, and how does that kind of stack up with the other smaller councils? So we have any metric around that at all, or is it a completely irrelevant statistic?
Well, on a per capita basis, out of the round these are from $25 million worth of state money, our share per capita would be 310,000. So we've tripled that. Not every council got any money. So I think we've done very well in that sense, but I'm not sure, CEO or Director, do we track those sort of ratios? Sorry, Director, you You want to hear it? There you go.
Yep. Sorry, we haven't got a straight line scientific proposal, but we have done very well comparatively. The only one that was done on a pro rata basis was the federal funding we've just received. So that was done directly on a pro rata basis. The two state grants were won on merit, and I think we can all be, as a council, proud of winning two significant grants when, as the mayor's pointed out, many others haven't. But yes, we accept that the federal one is on a more pro rata basis.
Yes, federal one is on per capita and road length. There's a slightly different calculation. So we're per capita fine, but road length, we are minnows to some of the regional councils. So it's a different formula. Sorry, CEO.
No, my apologies. Yep, I accept that.
Deputy Mayor, anything further?
No, thank you.
Councillor Nguyen.
Just want to say thank you to the staff who were involved in getting this project over the line. Also want to thank the Director of Infrastructure and Environment for meeting myself and Councillor Pearce the other day and run through with us the consultation process. I know that he has done letterbox letters to the residents along there, as well as speaking to some of the businesses along that area. So thank you very much for that. I look forward to hearing the feedback that's provided. There is opportunity to provide feedback on the website, and that letterbox giving residents opportunity to do that as well. So let's see what happens, what comes out of that.
Thank you. Just from the chair, I absolutely join in congratulating the staff. We've been very successful in the last 3 years in obtaining grants, much to our embarrassment, hence the previous item on getting some policy around how we digest all this good news when it comes through, and let's just get better at it. But I think we underestimate how important the Churchill Road upgrade is to the north of our city. Long derided as the ugliest part of our city and seen as a dumping ground for many things and ideas. It really is now, has every opportunity of coming alive in wonderful ways. I mean, the Prospect Road North upgrade has just been finished. It's taken 25 years to get from the centre of the city down to Fitzroy Terrace and then back up to our northern boundary, where we have trees that are irrigated and have every chance of actually growing rather than being stunted, moth-eaten things. And we've got beautification around the intersections, including Murray and Angwin. We've now got Churchill Road being talked about and now being funded for an upgrade in what was pretty drab affair. So functional, but very drab. And I'm really challenged the staff and the designers to make sure that they bring some of that beauty from the south into the north, where the road is wider and the footpaths narrower. It's going to be very much a challenge, but I know they're up for it. And also Livingston Avenue is on the cards to be done very soon. So when you combine all those things together, you think, crikey, there's a lot that's happening in the north. And it's about time, because nothing of significance has happened in the north of the city for 20 years or more. So I know Councillor Barnett and Councillor Harris, if they were here, would remember a former councillor often deriding the fact that so little was done in the Highbury ward, it was a joke. And he would argue vociferously for more money to be spent in the Highbury ward, and good on him. And then he'd vote against the budget every year. It was very funny. But anyway, his campaign was solid and he meant well. And the reason that there are plane trees on Regency Road is because of his work and his emphasis. This is a similar emphasis. And I'm really, really pleased, being a child of the north, that finally that end of the city is going to have that ugly tag taken away from it. And the people that live there who pay rates will be able to benefit from what we've all learnt in doing these projects to the south. And hopefully these are the best stages that they're going to be part of. So that's very important. The Nanu Wirra playground is part of our playground rejuvenation. It's great that we've had 3 playgrounds, in fact 4 with the skate park, part funded. It's helping us move through our park strategy much faster than we were doing. And those of us who were around for the development of the park strategy realised we had 26 parks and we tried to map out how on earth we were going to fund the much needed upgrades of those parks. We really were scratching our heads as to how we'd ever get to the end of it. This fourth one being part funded really helps us move on to the next ones. And I'll go back to the north. Irish Harp Reserve behind the Prospect Kindy on Regency Road is really in trouble. It's a very plain park. It has very little play equipment in it. It has some spots in there which are unsafe, and it really needs our help. But I've told all the residents they have to wait their turn. Ngānu Wira being funded helps their turn come up a bit sooner, and I know that they'll be grateful to that for that to happen. So these two grants are really timely. I'm glad the staff ran a process with us around what we thought was important, and that helped them work out what ones should go to the top of the list, and that's what got funded. That's really good. And probably just a final note about the importance of consulting not just us but the public. These two projects have gone in and been funded without us talking to the public. And I just want to highlight that there is a risk with doing that, which I hope we get better at, in that we have funding for a project scheme. For example, Ngānu Wira Playground, none of us have actually seen the design. So there's a risk there that we don't like it. And we're going to the public in the next week or two, there's a risk there that they don't like it. And so we've got an embarrassment there that we've put something up which is not really quite cooked. And I think we should avoid that. So I'll really go back to being committed to community engagement at the earliest possible time going forward. And so I think we're learning a lot, and I'm very happy that they've won these two projects and they'll make an enormous difference. Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, just to follow on, the congratulations, and I'm just mindful of your, because being a former Highbury ward councillor myself, with Twee and, or councillor, the Pearce and Newing are the ward councillors currently, that has always been a concern of mine about the reserve down there behind the Prospect Kindy, and that about the line of sight. And I think that, and I don't know where it is on our list of priorities, but I think we should be looking at a plan for that particular park, master planning there, because it's been like that way for a long, long time. So we just hope that, we might get on with doing that. I don't know if there is any priority of planning or whatever. And the other thing is that, just on the note about the linked with the Churchill, getting the grant for that northern end of Churchill Road, I was down there today, and we've got an unofficial Prospect swimming pool down there on that site where the former supermarket was going to go. So I don't know if staff or anybody has any information about the dangers of having quite a bit of water lying about, and especially in the winter. But perhaps Mayor, direct that through to one of our directors.
I could probably have a go at answering that. We were down on site visiting the Pearces at their development on that site during the week, and they also lament the water lying there. They previously had the site graded for it to run into their stormwater collection channel, and they're disappointed that Kaufland have left the site in such a way that it collects water. So they're working with Kaufland to try and remedy it, but they're not hopeful, because I think there's only one employee left, they said, for Kaufland in the entire country. So I think that will be difficult, but they're not happy with it because of the implications for their site. So I'm not sure, CEO, have I missed anything in that, or have you had anything further to add?
No, just that we obviously did meet with the developers of 1838. We did see the water lying there, Councillor Barnett. We are concerned about it, but as the Mayor's pointed out, it's a question of finding who might be responsible. We are very optimistic about getting that site to be used in a way that's optimal for our community. But yes, I can imagine you seeing that water as we did and being concerned.
Thank you. Any further debate? No, that being the case, Councillor Ripp, to sum up if you wish.
Yeah, thanks everyone for their comments and hope you support the recommendations.
Thank you. I'll take the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done. Phew. It's only taken 15 years. Anyway, item 10.4. Eastern Health Authority Draft Annual Business Plan 2020-2021 recommendations on page 61. Somebody happy to move it in its current form? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, as the council's rep on the board, I think if you read through the report, you'd be very pleased to see that our City of Prospect contribution has gone down from previous years, and so I think we have a saving of $19,994. Also, just perhaps, I don't know if elected members are aware, but how our different councils that are part of the Eastern Health Authority, there's a computer algorithm that has all sorts of information fed into it, and so it tells us, how much each council has to pay. A lot of it, you might see Nord Payneham, St Peters. Council was quite a bit more. That's because they've got a whole lot of restaurants that need inspecting in the usual run of the inspections. So just for information, so I'm very happy to move it. It's a draft, so we'll be going back from the recommendations from our council members of the authority, and then back to the Eastern Health Authority board. So thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pearce, do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? Sorry,
just quickly, I just have a question with the, and I'm not sure the answer. Like the turnover for the Eastern Health Authority is around the 1.8 million, or the budget next year is 1,830. So the accounting and auditing seems rather exorbitant to me, $17,000 for that size budget. Is that something we look at on a yearly basis? Do we put that out to other accounting firms to attend on that?
Let's go to the director on that one.
Yeah,
So,
look, thanks for that. And through the chair, the EHA has its own audit committee, and I think it's 3 years, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, every 3 years the board receive a report around which auditors have put in for that annual auditing role. And I think it was in last financial year was the last time it went out. And the board considered those appointed, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but appointed that last year. So there is a rigorous process that goes through, notwithstanding observations that 17,000 might be high for a small turnover organisation. But yeah, there's certainly a process, and it does have its own audit committee to go through.
Thank you. Councillor, anything further?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that, it's not just a given every year. We're only putting in a small percentage of the total bucket. Walkerville and the City of Prospect, the two smallest contributors, but it just seems to be an exorbitant amount to me. But it's obviously looked at, as Nathan has said, so that's fine.
Yep, thank you. Any further debate? No, perhaps just a comment for the director and for Councillor Barnett as our representative, given that you've flagged that this is a draft and you're seeking feedback. It just occurs to me that with the COVID-19 issue being raised and people desperately looking after their health to the point that we've not just flattened the curve, we've stomped on it, there is a heightened awareness of the value of immunisations. We don't have one for COVID-19, but people are thinking immunisations are a good thing at the moment. And I would like to see us step up our actions in offering, advertising, promoting the benefits of immunisations right now and throughout the next annual business plan to try and capture that moment and lift the immunisation acceptance levels and the immunisation rates in terms of everything, not just COVID-19 or flu or related issues, but also whooping cough and measles and meningococcal and all those other things which we have vaccines for and are starting to creep back because people are a bit shy about vaccines. So if that's just my feedback, but if you could give that some measure when you're reporting back in the process, that it is a once in a generation opportunity where immunisations are the talk of the family conversation, and we should grab it with both hands. Thank you. Any further debate? No, that being the case, Councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
I've made a note of that, and I'm sure Director Cunningham has as well. And the other thought that occurred to me, I picked up on the media, was about childcare centre staff and flu immunisation. So I'm going to send an email to the EHA CEO to see if that's an area that we might be able to get into.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. General business of an urgent nature. Is there any urgent business to raise? No. Good. Move on. Reports for information. We'll adopt these en bloc unless somebody withdraws them. Does anybody wish to withdraw item 12.1, the mayoral monthly activity report? No. The 12.2, the smoke-free areas within the city of Prospect. Oh, I saw a couple of hands go up there. Councillor Ripp, I saw first. 12.3, Eastern Waste Management Authority board meeting minutes. Anybody wish to withdraw that? No. 12.4, the audit committee meeting minutes. Anybody wish to withdraw that one? Councillor Ripp. Okay, thank you. Someone wish to move items 12.1 and 12.3 then? Councillor Ripp. There is no debate of moving on block. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Groot. All those in favour? Against? They're all carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12.2, Councillor, are you happy to move it in its current form?
Yeah, look, moving it in its current form. And just wanted to say thank you to the staff for the report. I found it a really good read. And I did want to, I know that it's come as a report for information, not as a report for decision. So I'll just foreshadow that at the next council meeting, I would be interested in looking, sorry, my computer just froze on me. I'll just get the, yep. I would like to look at the potential new smoke-free areas and seeing if we can expand them, particularly to cover our Parks and Reserve and Prospect Road Village Heart. Thank the staff for the detailed report. It was a good read. And I really think we should be doing everything we can to increase the new smoke-free areas. We should be doing what we can. I'll leave my chatter there, and I'll sum up if I need to, depending on other people's feedback.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Deputy Mayor, I saw next. Do you wish to speak to it?
I do. I think it's a good report. I think it misses. It doesn't address one of the problems that I've noticed. And I'm sure other people have noticed it because it's been brought to the attention of staff, and that is that policing of this type of thing is difficult, and particularly when we've got a burgeoning village heart and we've got a nighttime economy, which is where people are, mixed with a few drinks, are quite likely to get the durries out and light up in areas where they're not supposed to. So we don't really have any stated mechanism for dealing with that situation. I know there's one example of a particular restaurant on Prospect Road, which has been reported on several times. The staff have gone to speak to the proprietor, who has kind of nodded, sagely. And then the next week you see people standing out the front smoking again in an outdoor dining area. So I think the one thing that this misses is details around how we're going to address that type of scenario, and I'm interested in the thoughts of the other elected members on what they think with regards to that component of this report.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, I had similar sentiments to the Deputy Mayor. I think we should definitely promote greater smoke-free zones, and I think that's certainly what a modern community expects when you're going with your family at Prospect Road or with your partner or whatever, or if you're having a nice meal. But as the report points out, that smoking is still legal, and it's where we actually have the ability to enforce things. Looking at other things, do we have abilities to tie conditions to outdoor dining on Prospect Roads? Obviously, we grant outdoor dining. Is there any ability to do that? And also as a condition of liquor license, is there anything that we can do around that? So, I mean, I'm all for the nighttime economy, but again, this is another issue where we've got this new whiz-bang asset and fantastic precinct, but we need to resource it to actually, you know, I guess come with all the operational costs that go with it. So I'd be interested, I guess, maybe through the chair to the director, I guess what would the cost of, you know, having someone out on the street in the evenings, say a Friday, Saturday, Sunday evening, be, and also can we tie outdoor approvals and the liquor licensing to breaches of maybe smoking in those locations?
I think the first part is the second part's an easy answer. It's in the report that where we've granted outdoor dining, it is conditional upon it being no smoking. I'll just ask staff to clarify, and to go to your first question, which is what's the cost of enforcing on, say, 3 nights. CEO, at your discretion.
Through you, Chair, can I just go to the director?
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Chair. I don't have any costs, I'm sorry, on hourly rates for inspectors, and that's something I'm happy to do some research on say Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, or include a Sunday night as well, because that'd be a higher cost. I'm happy to do some research. These staff would have to be qualified. They need to get some authorisation. What we don't have authority to do is demand a person's name and address. We don't have that ability. Only SAPOL have that authority. So sometimes it can be very difficult to be able to actually prosecute someone because we can't get their name and address. But as it says in the report, we could have officers that could do promotion. So we go and promote to our community the benefits and what they're doing, and they shouldn't be doing it in certain spaces. So I'm happy to do that research.
Councillor?
Yeah, look, yeah, it would be interesting to know, because I think that's probably the only way it can be effective, because I don't see us using our outdoor dining policy to take seats away, or it hasn't happened, or I haven't seen it happen anywhere else. And it's not a good outcome for anyone, I think. So, look, I'd be really interested, but I guess you have to look at the dollars and cents of how to get a policy like this that's effective.
Thank you. Councillor Groot, and then Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor, and also thank you to Councillor Ripp for bringing this up initially. I'd certainly support any foreshadowed motions around this, particularly around open parks and Prospect Road. Look, I also have a question to the appropriate director, which is along the same lines or similar lines to what's been asked around enforcement, but it's more, I guess, a specific question about have we either fined anyone or given appropriate education to anyone, particularly pointing out the Deputy Lord Mayor's views on some repeat offenders who continually flout the law, which I think we've all gone past particular establishments and observed that ourselves. So have we issued fines? Have we issued any expiation notices at all under our current powers?
Director.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of us issuing fines. I'm happy to do some research though over the last, say, 5 years to see if there has any, but I'm not aware of any.
So that probably leads to my next question, which is when somebody repeatedly doesn't do the right thing, how many I don't want to say how many chances we give, because it sounds quite punitive, but how many educative opportunities do we provide until we actually say, look, sorry, sorry, gentlemen, you've done one too many, and we actually give a fine or expiation. It's quite frustrating, because this has been an issue that's been going for a long time, and I'm sure this has been raised under the previous council as well. So,
Thank you. Director?
Through the chair, I'm actually not aware of the actual business that we're referring to at this stage. I'm happy to talk to someone offline about that, and I'll get some more information about have we issued any fines in the past. So yeah, I'll have to take that advisement if that's okay.
Look, happy to, but beyond that, would be interested in any just more generalised across the city, how many fines or expiations we've given as a result of the current powers we have as a council.
CEO, just one part there that wasn't quite answered, perhaps because it's in a different area, was the connection to the outdoor dining permits, and whether there's any action taken to the extent of the permit or withdrawal of the permit, rather than expiation notice. Councillor De Backer raised this point as well.
Sure. Can I just refer that again to the director? Have we removed any outdoor dining permits because of this?
The chair, we haven't removed them, but we have certainly spoken to a couple of restaurants that were having ashtrays on their tables, which they weren't allowed under their permits. We've discussed that. They've now moved away, and they've tried to direct people away from their restaurants who do smoke. But that education piece has been used, and being that they were flaunting the rules with ashtrays, we were at least able to take that step from there.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Groot? No, Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I was on council when this first came up, and so very happy to support it about stopping smoking in playgrounds. So I'd be interested in any further report. My query goes more to the fact I haven't seen myself evidence of a lot of cigarette butts lying around the place, unless it's in a car park and somebody's been cleaning out their car cigarette thing and just not very thoughtfully just dump them on the ground. So I'm just wondering, I believe, is it KeySab, or they do litter reports? So I'm just wondering if we can get some sense of how we're going, in terms of the overall picture about smoking and say cigarette butts. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess pick that up in the report that comes back to us. Any further debate? Councillor Nguyen. Still on mute, Councillor. That's it?
Yeah, I've been to a lot of playgrounds, parks. Don't see a lot of cigarette butts. I think the playgrounds are pretty good where there's children around. Probably just the restaurants or the night, the cafeterias. So I'd be focusing on that more than playgrounds. I think they're quite compliant at the playgrounds, especially on the Saturdays and Sundays lunchtime where I've been around. So yeah, that's just a comment that I want to make, and I just want to thank Council Rip for bringing it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Just briefly for the chair, this is an interesting one every time, and I'm reminded by people who smoke who say to me, it's perfectly legal to smoke. Please remember that whenever you're restricting my legal rights. And whilst I've never been a smoker, and I've never liked working with smokers, it always makes me feel very unhealthy, they do have a point. So if there is a motion to come before us, it needs to pick up everything that's in this report, which I think is an excellent report, and also help us understand how this would be promoted, how it would be signposted to get the maximum benefit of self-policing or from nearby people policing it. In other words, the next table points at the sign and says, excuse me, see, no smoking. That's how it works best around the place. In the absence of that, what are the mechanisms? I think that would be important in terms of us understanding, are we up for a staff cost here for 3 nights every week forever to try and police this? Goodness, that's a lot of money. Or are there other ways to capture it in that the outdoor dining permits could be withdrawn if there's 3 offences? So it has to have some teeth. Otherwise, this is just a feel-good motion. Importantly, if we are saying that smoking be further restricted and Prospect Road Village Heart looks like a prime candidate, Norwood Parade has done it, I'd really like to know where the legal smokers go to smoke legally. And if it means they can't smoke on Prospect Road and therefore go down the side streets and smoke in front of someone's house at 10:30 at night, I think that would be a bad outcome. So if there is to be a foreshadowed motion, and Councillor Ripp can deal with this in his summing up or in his motion when it comes before us, these issues need to be thought through carefully, because we can't make smoking illegal, and people who are, want to do that are entitled to do it. We have to think about how they'll do that safely without having an unintended consequence. And we also want to do it in a way where it doesn't add to the ratepayers' burden. So there's a bit to think about in this, but I think the report's an excellent start to put all the issues in front of us and to help us understand where this is at. Perhaps finish with a question that I'll direct to the CEO, and that is, what would the staff recommend, having listened to a little bit of this debate and knowing what's happening in other councils? What would you think is a sustainable position if we ask staff to make a recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. Look, the administration wouldn't recommend an expansion. We think that the smoke-free zones are very clear. We think the social norms around smoking are very clear, as you pointed out, around restaurants and playgrounds. The cost of policing this is, we think, disproportionately high. And as you pointed out, Chair, it's a legal right for people to smoke, and we'd like them to smoke in a place that is appropriate rather than inappropriate.
Food for thought. Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Ripp, bring us home.
Get the premiership points, 4 premiership points, as they say. No, look, I think obviously from all the comments I picked up on that, we need to look at how we're going to obviously police it and also promote it, linking it to our communications. But also I think in terms of policing it, we also need to not just look at, in my opinion, about what can our inspectors do, but it's also building relationships with SA Police and linking that in with the community as well. Yeah, that will be an important step. And also looking at, I think it's definitely got to have teeth to it. So I guess a sentiment from people that I'm hearing tonight, if we're going to focus on anything, is focus around the restaurants in that area. So yeah, I don't see a problem with outdoor dining permits. If we know there's particular businesses where there's repeat offenders or and the business isn't doing anything about it, link it to the outdoor dining permits and I guess force their hand. I think you have to do it. I mean, you've got to have teeth if it's going to be taken seriously. So I don't see why we can't look at least at better policing the ones we've got, but particularly expanding it to at least cover that village heart. So look, I'll put some thinking caps on, but I welcome offline any extra comments from elected members as well.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item withdrawn was item 12.4, the Audit Committee meeting minutes from the 27th of April 2020, recommendations on page 111. Councillor, who did I have withdrawing? I think it's Councillor Ripp I saw first. Did you wish to move it in its current form?
Yeah, I do. And I just wanted to, the reason I pulled this out, can I just seek some clarification why this comes, I know it has before, but why it comes as a report for information only? Because it was my understanding that when you're sort of endorsing minutes like this, it's actually a decision like you're receiving and noting the minutes. Is there the ability for council to pull a particular item out and totally change the recommendation? Can I just seek some clarification about that?
CEO.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just refer to the Director.
Yep.
Director.
Through the Chair, this is the minutes of the Audit Committee on the 27th of April, and there's no decision making in these particular minutes, and they are presented to council for noting only.
Councillor, does that answer your question?
Well, it does in part, but what I'm, because obviously, Mayor, you and I are both on that committee. So if we wanted to change or bring a decision about, I know in a previous council I was on, obviously there are more elected members on particular committees, but nonetheless, we've still got 2 of us on that committee. If we wanted to pull an item out and further debate a particular item that's actually in the minutes, would we be in a position to?
You could certainly do that in this process. Having withdrawn it, it then becomes for debate. If there was a specific issue, my advice would be to make it a motion on notice to provide absolute clarity. But Director, can you provide a further answer if I'm not right on track there?
Yep, through the chair, council can't change the minutes of the audit committee. Council certainly can talk about and change the resolution of the audit committee.
Okay.
Of
And the reason I'm not planning to do that with any particular item here, but obviously I just wanted to pull it out because I think too, it's important to note that if we are, as it says, receiving and noting the minutes, it's got conflict of interest bearings. It's got so if we're as a council or elected body receiving and noting minutes, and a particular member had a conflict of something, I just think it's more than just rubber stamping the minutes.
Yep. Noted. Food for thought for the CEO and others, I think. Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Groot, do you wish to speak to it?
I just have one question, if I can, just in relation to the COVID financial support package. Did the committee make any comments around that might be useful to hear now?
Director?
Through the chair, the committee did not specifically make any comment for council to consider. That report was presented to the committee for noting about council's initiatives and how does council fund that particular incentives. So predominantly the funding of that is through this current year's savings, and the committee has accepted that.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Groot?
No, thank you. I've just given that I think our package, our financial support package has been a really good one and quite successful. It's just good to have the confidence of the audit committee as well with that. So thank you.
Yes, sometimes no comment is the best comment, and that's what they did. They noted it and noted it was funded sustainably. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Further debate? There being none, Councillor Ripson, you need to sum up.
No, thanks.
Okay, that concludes debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. Council member reports and briefings. Are there any council member reports or briefings? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, just for noting, I understand that the Prospect RSL, there is a meeting arranged for them to have input into our report about the Prospect Oval upgrade. So for information.
Thank you. Any further elected member reports? No. We'll move on to motions on notice nil, questions with notice nil. We now have a confidential item 16.1, the Chief Executive Officer Performance Development Review Committee. Somebody happy to move that we go into confidence? Item 1. Sorry, Councillor Groot, I saw. Do you wish to speak to it? I have a seconder. Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Against, it is carried unanimously, and we are thus in confidence. If you're not named in that item there, if you could please leave the meeting. We will in fact...
point of order. I think we've got a separate list. Has this been sent to us from a confidential meeting?
If you are in this meeting, we will now leave this Zoom meeting and commence another Zoom meeting, but we are still in the same council meeting. So leave this and open up your other diary booking. I'll see you in a second.